beyond. Alex Batty, who went missing in Spain 6 years ago, has been found alive and well in France after he was allegedly kidnapped by his mother.
We want to hear from you today, so do get in touch with lots of your comments on what we're talking about. GBviews at gbnews.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Now, here's your latest headlines. Good morning, it's 9:32. I'm Lisa Hartle in the GB Newsroom. One person has died and another is in a critical condition after a boat carrying migrants across the Channel got into difficulty overnight. The French Coast Guard was alerted just after 1 a.m. to reports that a boat was sinking about 5 miles off Dunkirk. One side of the boat, which was carrying 66 people, was deflated, with dozens thrown into the water. The Coast Guard says air and sea searches are still underway. Prince Harry will discover the outcome of a hacking claim against a tabloid newspaper publisher later. The Duke of Sussex is suing Mirror Group newspapers for damages, claiming its journalists gathered information by deception and unlawful means such as phone hacking. A High Court judge will rule on 33 of the articles Prince Harry says were acquired illegally between 1996 and 2009. The Mirror Group lawyers rejected the allegations as entirely speculative. A British schoolboy who was found in France after going missing 6 years ago says he wants to see his grandmother and have a normal future. Alex Batty, who is now 17, went missing in 2017 after going on a family holiday to Spain. Detectives believe he was abducted by his mother to live an alternative lifestyle abroad. It's reported the case has officially been handed over to British police, who could bring back Alex to the UK as early as today. A refugee charity is taking legal action against the government over its use of a former RAF airbase in Essex to house asylum seekers. Care for Calais says the site in Wethersfield does not meet legally required standards, describing it as prison-like. But the Home Office says the airbase provides safe accommodation for asylum seekers and is designed to be as self-sufficient as possible. You can get more on all of those stories by visiting our website, gbnews.com. Now, back to Ellie and Pip. Lisa, thanks very much. Now, one person's died and another is critically injured in hospital after a dramatic rescue operation in the English Channel overnight.
Yes, the French Coast Guard was alerted just after 1 a.m. to reports that a migrant boat was sinking about 5 miles off Dunkirk.
Government Minister Andrew Griffiths said the news of another migrant tragedy in the English Channel showed why the crossing was not a safe route and why Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was cracking down on the terrible trade of people traffickers. Our Home and Security editor Mark White is with us now. Mark, what's the very latest then you can tell us about this?
Well, the search operation is still underway because although 66 people were rescued that the authorities know about on that boat, it obviously got into difficulties in the pitch black, and it's perfectly possible there may have been some other migrants on board that boat that are still missing. The authorities were alerted about 12:30 local time to reports that this migrant boat was in difficulty. Effectively, one side of the boat, it's made up of these two big, long inner tubes, and the migrants sit on an inner tube at either side of the boat. One of the inner tubes, when the authorities arrived there on the scene, was completely deflated, and that had tossed dozens of migrants into the freezing English Channel. So then there was a desperate rescue operation by those French vessels, 5 French vessels and a UK Coast Guard helicopter on the scene to try to rescue those people. They took 2 unconscious people on board a rescue craft. They worked on one migrant for some time, but they were unable to resuscitate them. They were declared dead on that craft. Another was flown in an unconscious state to hospital and is described as being in a critical condition, life-threatening condition at this hour. And as I say, that search operation continues because they just can't be sure that there's, it's certainly possible. We have had migrant boats with more than 66 people on board, as incredible as that sounds, they're absolutely full to the gunnels some of the time. And the problem is, especially at this time of the year, because we've got bad weather conditions for the most part, any time there's a weather window, then you get the people smugglers pushing off these boats, and they absolutely fill up the boats, get as many migrants on as possible, and then you get these kinds of tragedies.
Do we know if there were any children on board?
There's no information on that, or indeed the sexes of those on board or who have died at this stage. Still a bit early for that kind of information to come through. We're still in the kind of search and rescue stage of this operation at the moment.
Mark, how does it work practically when a boat gets into trouble in the English Channel? Because we understand here that this was a joint effort between UK authorities and French authorities, and these people here were taken to Calais. How does it work? Is it just who gets there first in order to help?
Yeah, I mean, what normally happens is the boats will push off from one of the beaches in northern France, and then normally fairly quickly the French authorities, if they weren't quick enough to get to them on the beach, will be aware that there's a boat in the water. They will send a patrol boat to that area. They have realised over time that efforts to try to persuade the migrants to get on their boat and return to France are just, ignored. And they've decided that they are not going to intervene because that could cause more harm than good if they try to pull migrants manually on board their vessels. So they escort them. It's very controversial. Lots of people in this country angry about that, but that's French policy. They will just stand off about half a mile away or so, and they will just escort that vessel through. And if it gets into difficulty on that route, then they'll intervene. So it might have been that that vessel got into difficulty. The French escort was able relatively quickly to get to the scene and call for more assistance. But we say relatively quickly, you're still in the water for quite a number of minutes. And, before all the rescue vessels can get there, quite some time. And, of course, the English Channel, any time of the year, is pretty cold, but now, of course, those temperatures are dipping right off again.
I think this is what surprises me. I've been filming in the English Channel. It was July. It was first thing in the morning. It was easy to spot the boats.
Yeah.
But in December, I don't think I expected to hear that boats would still make this perilous crossing at this time of year.
Yeah, I mean, I was across in Calais and Dunkirk just a week before last, doing filming there. In the migrant camps, there were thousands of people still gathered there waiting for their window to cross. And this is what they'll do. OK, we don't have the long periods of flat cam conditions that you get in the summer, but there are still windows when, like today, it's not ideal at all, but it's just about passable. And then the people smugglers decide, do we risk it, do we not? Of course, they don't want, as part of their business model, to be killing their customers. It's bad for business at the end of the day, is their calculation. But they take more risks in the winter months because there are very few windows, and you push out when there are heavy swells like today. And these vessels are flimsy. They're made to order in backstreet factories in China, shipped to Turkey, then they're transported from Turkey in vehicles up to the likes of Germany for onward transportation to northern France for when they cross the English Channel there. They're quite flimsy vessels, and especially with, more than 60 people on board, if you get heavy waves, that really puts a lot of pressure on the seams of these vessels and they can give way. And this is probably what happened last night.
Oh, awful. Well, Mark, thank you very much for bringing us up to date. We'll talk to you again shortly, where you can bring us the latest. Thank you.
Now, a teenager from Oldham, Alex Batty, who vanished 6 years ago, has been found safe and well in France. The 17-year-old had been missing since 2017 after he was allegedly kidnapped by his mother. He was found this week by a motorist who stopped him after he was walked through the rain near Toulouse.
Assistant Chief Constable Chris Sykes of Greater Manchester Police has just confirmed that Alex spoke on a video call with his grandmother last night. We will bring you the latest on this as it develops.
Well, meanwhile, the huge search operation for a missing mother in Norwich has entered its second week.
Gaynor Lord went missing near the River Wensum in Norwich at around 2:35 last Friday, prompting a huge search by police divers, fire crews and Coast Guard. We're joined live from Norwich by our national reporter Theo Chikomba. Theo, the search must be getting more and more desperate now, but officers continue to focus, don't they, on the river?
Yes, of course. Well, yesterday, Chief Superintendent Dave Buckley from Norfolk Police did confirm that they're going to be continuing their searches here. Indeed, this morning, just over my left shoulder, actually, you can see some specialist dive team officers who are going back into the water. They've just been coming into this area, bringing all their gear and heading back out into the water. The search does continue on land and in the water, and we're likely to see some of those dive team members go back in again to search every single part of this river. They're using sonar technology and they're wanting just to rule out just in case they have missed anything. They haven't said at the moment if they're going to go any further out of this area, but they are saying this area in particular, where some of her items were found last week, is particularly of interest. Now, they confirm that 60 officers are working on this case, and that includes specialists from Lincolnshire Police as well, who've been working with them throughout this week. But of course, for the family and friends of Gaynor Lord, will be hoping that they can get some answers from the police. And the police are also appealing to anybody who might have any information, might have seen her. We've seen those CCTV footage images which have been released throughout this week. Latest ones yesterday showing her last whereabouts on St Augustine's Street in Norwich at around 4 o'clock last week, Friday. But of course, the investigation continues here for the time being.
When you've been speaking to local people there, how are they feeling? Of course, the family of Gaynor Lord is at the forefront of our mind right now. You can only imagine what they're going through. But for local people as well, we can see activity there on the water behind you. Obviously, a very heavy police operation there. It must be very distressing for local people who'll be trying to rack their brains as to whether they saw or heard anything this time last week.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I spoke to someone who lives just across the road from here this morning, just asking what's the latest update, saying we're obviously deeply concerned and we're hoping that the police can find something that can help the family to understand what has happened. No doubt everyone in this area who can see this operation, because this park is completely closed, it's quite obvious that there is an investigation taking place here. But of course, the police are wanting to search every single area here. You can see some of them going through the bushes and just to rule out if they've missed out anything. But of course, their search continues here.
Theo Chikomba talking to us from Norwich. Thank you very much for bringing us the latest. We're joined in the studio now by the former Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville. Good morning, I should say to you, Mike. This does have, you can't help but think back to the terrible tragedy of Nicola Bulley.
Exactly.
From earlier in the year. And we know that police in Norwich are speaking to their counterparts in the northwest about this. They're looking at the river. It will take a long time, though, won't it, to conduct that search?
People don't understand how difficult it is, actually difficult and dangerous for those police divers. I mean, they can just about see the hand in front of their face. Now, I don't know how deep this river is. It's got a fast flow. As we saw with Nicola Bulley, an enormous effort was made to search the river. 3 or 4 years ago, a guy called Anthony Knott went missing, a fireman in Tunbridge Wells, and with both of those cases, it took 3 weeks for the body to emerge itself rather than anybody find it. So those divers are doing, as I say, a difficult and dangerous job. And they'll be in that river, it's almost like a fingertip search in the water. And, of course, it's not just the bottom, because things get caught up on reeds and things that are underneath the river. So that's very difficult. So that's one area of search. But, of course, they'll be searching the park, as we've said, for any other clues. But also, we can only hope that she's still alive. So they'll be doing things like digital searches on. We've seen all the CCTV work seems to have been done very well by Norfolk Police. And then they'll be looking at computers, phones, trying to trace any activity, because, of course, in this world, we live in a very digital world where you can be traced in that manner as well.
And Norfolk Police, they will want to have learnt lessons, won't they, from the Nicola bully case? I mean, we saw the worst of people, really, at that time when we saw all the armchair detectives come out. Many of them actually go to the scene themselves, and the police did have to speak at press conferences about tampering with potential evidence. What we're seeing here, the police trying to practice some sort of restraint by not giving perhaps too much away.
Yes, what the big failing in Lancashire was, of course, what the big criticism was about how they handled the press. You know, they gave away, at the start, they set a false narrative, you know, she's just Mrs Average, nothing's happened. And then things started to come out that the police had been to the house, which started people pointing fingers at the husband when he was nothing to do with anything like that. And then it came out about some medical information. And then rather than saying nothing, they started telling us everything about her, which was unnecessary. So the Norfolk police seem to have... they've learned that lesson, no doubt, and they're giving the press up-to-date information all the time, because you know as well as I do, if there's a gap, people will fill that void with some conspiracy theory or lunacy, which then doesn't help the family, because as you said in the introduction, that the real people we're thinking of here is the family just before Christmas. A terrible time.
Yeah. What was really interesting in the press conference a couple of days ago was the detective in charge described Gaynor Lord's behaviour as out of character. Where is the line for the police? When would you... Is anybody who goes missing and their behaviour before, would it be deemed as out of character, or does something need to have happened specifically for it to appear strange?
Well, I ran a missing persons unit in Lambeth, so very, very busy. And, of course, you've got the one extreme, you've got kids who are going missing from a children's home every day, so it's not out of character at all. Here you have a lady who seemingly has a good job, she has a family life, and her behaviour isn't erratic. So the fact that she sort of just bunked off work, in essence, left work an hour and a half early, seemingly without speaking to her manager, that seems very odd. And, of course, with this becomes a very critical instance very quickly, because they've found the rings, the mobile, the clothing in the park. So this would flag it up straight away as something that you've got to do as an emergency.
And so difficult in terms of what information they can give to Gaynor's family.
Yes, exactly. They'll be there wanting the most information, and I've no doubt that Norfolk Constabulary have appointed a family liaison officer. There's an officer that they can trust, that they can get information to, and then they can share it in the most delicate manner with the family.
Yeah, thinking of them, just as you say, so close to Christmas. Thank you very much, Mike Neville, former Detective Chief Inspector and former head of a missing persons unit. Thank you very much. Now, Prince Harry will soon find out whether he has won his phone hacking lawsuit against the publisher Mirror Group newspapers, a case in which he gave evidence earlier this year.
Let's go straight to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, who is outside the Royal Courts of Justice. Good morning to you, Cameron. When can we hear this ruling then? And just talk us through it, because Prince Harry, well, he made history, didn't he, when he took to the witness box a few months ago?
Yeah, he absolutely did, Pip. It was the first time in 130 years that a senior royal had entered the witness box to give evidence as part of a trial. The world's media have again this morning descended on this courtroom in central London. Not quite as many as when Prince Harry turned up in person, but nonetheless it was a gruelling 7-week trial. Prince Harry gave evidence for over 2 days, for around 8 hours, where he was brutally cross-examined by Mirror Group newspapers barrister when he was giving his evidence. He was visibly upset, I think, inside the courtroom when he was giving his evidence. In written statements, in his witness statement, he said he couldn't trust anyone during this time period, that these 33 articles written about him being tested were published. That was between the years 1991 and 2010. He also said he experienced bouts of depression and paranoia. He accuses Mirror Group newspaper journalists of phone hacking, blagging, or the use of deception to get information, and the use of private investigators to carry out unlawful information gathering in order to get that information to write articles about him. But Prince Harry's not the only high-profile figure connected to this case. He is one of a number of high-profile figures, including Coronation Street actor Michael Lavelle and actress Nikki Sanderson as well. Now, Mirror Group newspapers mostly contests the claims here in this case. They deny all allegations of phone hacking, as well as most of the unlawful information gathering which has been alleged during the course of this 7-week trial. They did, however, make a small number of admissions in relation to Prince Harry. They apologised to him in court and accepted that he is entitled to some damages. But Prince Harry wants £440,000 from Mirror Group newspapers, and a lawyer for the publisher previously says that Prince Harry is only entitled to £500 for one article which was written using unlawful information that had been gathered. But that particular article, completely unrelated to this trial here. Now, David Sherborne, Prince Harry's lawyer, says it's utterly implausible that Prince Harry is not a victim of phone hacking, because a former Mirror editor at the time was described in court as the king of hacking. Now, if Prince Harry wins today, he will see this as a significant victory in his fight against the British press. He sees it as his life's mission to change the way that they operate, and he also sees it as his mission, really, to take on these powerful publishers. Many of the alleged victims, or who Prince Harry sees as alleged victims, simply do not have the funds to take on this legal fight against the publishers, and Prince Harry is very much determined to do so. If he loses, he may well see it as a bit of a miscarriage of justice, but we'll have to wait and see exactly what the judge decides. We're expecting his decision at around 10:30 this morning.
And Cameron, what do you think victory could mean to Prince Harry if indeed that's what we find out in this ruling at 10:30? I mean, as you say, seeking damages of £440,000. But do you think it is at all about the money, or do you think it is about his vindication and having his day in court?
I don't think it's at all about the money. I don't think Prince Harry's particularly strapped for cash. I think it very much, as you say, Ellie, is about the fact that he feels he has been a victim of unlawful information gathering, as well as the other alleged victims in this case. And he really wants his day in court. He had 2 days of it back in June, where he gave evidence in front of lawyers and indeed the world's media. So it's going to be really interesting to see if he releases any kind of statement following the judge's decision this morning.
OK, Cameron Walker there for us at the Royal Courts of Justice. Thank you very much indeed.
Harry's pretty busy, isn't he? Because he's got a number of High Court claims going on at the moment. Still to come, we are speaking to the mother of murdered toddler James Bolger in an exclusive interview for GB News. Hear what she has to say very shortly here on Britain's Newsroom. Stay with us.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a brighter day out there for southeastern areas than yesterday, but cloud will thicken for the rest of us from the west. So it's a bit of a bright start across central and eastern areas. Perhaps a little chilly out there for you. Any mist and fog should clear over the next few hours and temperatures should rise quite quickly. Further west, though, we'll see quite a lot of cloud building through the course of the afternoon and some drizzly rain starting to arrive across parts of Wales as well as much of northern Scotland. But a southerly breeze will start to pick up those temperatures, so highs of around 11 or 12 degrees in the west, but a little bit cooler further east. Further east, it stays dry through much of this evening, but the cloud will build from the west and across parts of Wales, northern England and much of Scotland. It will stay quite dull through the evening with some drizzly rain. The winds will also start to pick up overnight tonight, and that will hold the temperatures up well above the average for this time of year. Parts of northern Scotland could not dip below 11 degrees tonight. So it'll be a mild start to the weekend. Many southern areas will stay dry through much of the day on Saturday, but it will be fairly cloudy. The further north and west you are through Saturday, the more likely you are to see some rain. And in fact, the far northwest of Scotland will see some quite persistent rain start to arrive from lunchtime on Saturday, but it will stay very mild. Have a great day, and I'll see you later.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Annie, thank you. Do stay with us because in the next hour, the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, will find out whether he has won his phone hacking lawsuit against publisher Mirror Group newspapers. He has 5 High Court cases going on at the moment.
Yeah, this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News, the People's Channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affects us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 a.m. on Friday the 15th of December. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Pip Thompson and me, Ellie Costello.
Judgment Day for Harry. The Duke of Sussex is expected to find out this hour whether he has won his phone hacking lawsuit against the publisher Mirror Group newspapers. Our political correspondent Cameron Walker has more.
Prince Harry's already had his day in court, and today he finds out his results. If he wins, it will be seen as a significant victory for Prince Harry in his fight against the British press. If he loses, what will be the outcome? Find out very shortly.
James Bolger's mother in a sit-down interview with the mother of the murdered toddler. She reveals she's fighting for tougher legislation against killers like John Venables.
Venables does get old. These people who are saying, you know, let it go, if you went and killed one of their kids, they'd be saying to me, you should have fought harder.
British boy found. Alex Batty, who went missing in Spain 6 years ago, has been found in France. He's expected back in the UK in the next few days.
No more commute. New research shows only 1 in 4 companies expect their staff to be in the office full-time in the next year.
Do let us know your thoughts on all of our talking points today. We like the holly and the ivy, aren't we?
We are. It's very festive in here today.
Get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.com. Now here's your latest headlines with Lisa.
Good morning. It's just after 10 o'clock. I'm Lisa Hartle in the GB Newsroom. One person has died and another is in a critical condition after a boat carrying migrants across the Channel got into difficulty overnight. The French Coast Guard was alerted just after 1 a.m. to reports that a boat was sinking about 5 miles off the coast of Dunkirk. 66 people have been rescued after one side of the boat was deflated. The Coast Guard says air and sea searches are still underway. Chair of the Labour Party, Annalise Dodds, says the government is not working to stop the root cause of the small boat crossings.
Labour wouldn't be spending that money on Rwanda. It's eye-wateringly expensive. £400 million, it appears, is going to be spent on that scheme, and yet it would only cover about 1% of people who are arriving in the UK. Labour does have a different approach, and above all, it's focused on breaking up those criminal gangs.
UK police are working with French authorities to bring back a British schoolboy who went missing 6 years ago. Alex Batty, who is now 17, went missing in 2017 after going on a family holiday to Spain. Detectives believe he was abducted by his mother to live an alternative lifestyle abroad. The boy says he wants to see his grandmother and have a normal future. Assistant Chief Constable from Greater Manchester Police, Chris Sykes, gave this update earlier, a warning this video contains flashing images.
Our main priority now is to see Alex returned home to his family in the UK, and our investigation team are working around the clock with partner agencies and the French authorities to ensure they are all fully supported. Alex and his family remain our focus, and we still have some work to do in establishing the full circumstances surrounding his disappearance and where he has been in all those years.
Prince Harry will discover the outcome of a hacking claim against a tabloid newspaper publisher later. The Duke of Sussex is suing Mirror Group newspapers for damages, claiming its journalists gathered information by deception and unlawful means such as phone hacking. A High Court judge will rule on 33 of the articles Prince Harry says were acquired illegally between 1996 and 2009. The Mirror Group lawyers rejected the allegations as entirely speculative. Royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliam says the verdict will determine other cases.
You could call, if you're going to quote from Shakespeare, valiant fury. On the one hand, he's absolutely determined that these stories got into the public domain because he was hacked, because they were so important to his life, and he believes his life has been partly ruined by press intrusion. On the other hand, of course, as you say, there's a case regarding alleged illegal hacking against the Sun, against the Mail coming up. Then there's the case regarding his security in the Home Office.
Detectives continue to search for the mother of 3 in Norwich as her family marks a week since her disappearance. Gaynor Lord went missing after leaving work in Norwich city centre last Friday. Police say there is a high probability that the 55-year-old went into the River Wensum where a huge search is being conducted by specialist divers. The force also released CCTV footage of what they believe is the last sighting of Miss Lord. Met Police officers will soon be trained to identify and call out sexism and misogyny. It's part of the force's 10-point plan outlining a series of commitments aimed at restoring public trust. It follows recent police scandals, including the unmasking of former officer David Carrick as a serial abuser and rapist. Russia has launched more than 40 drones and 6 missiles at Ukraine overnight. More than 11 people have been injured, including 3 children, after over a dozen buildings have been damaged in the southern region of Odessa. Ukraine also says Russia attacked one of their ports and damaged the warehouses of 2 train storage facilities. Relatives of 2 people killed at a London music venue have renewed their appeal for information 1 year on from the fatal crush. 23-year-old security guard Gabby Hutchinson and 33-year-old Rebecca Icumelo were killed when fans without tickets tried to force their way into Brixton Academy last year. Met Police urged the council to remove the venue's licence, but the place was allowed to continue operating as long as it meets its new conditions. Earlier today, the Met Police released CCTV images of people they wished to speak to about the incident and confirmed 1 arrest had been made. This is GB News across the UK on TV, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now it's back to Pip and Ellie.
The mother of murdered toddler James Bulger has warned parents that their children will never be safe if the parole system isn't overhauled.
One of James's killers, John Venables, was denied freedom by the Parole Board this week after a 30-year fight to keep him behind bars.
In an interview with Breakfast Eamon Holmes, Denise revealed she is now working closely with Justice Ministers to help new legislation get through, which will keep murderers behind bars and put victims first.
He was taken just 2 weeks shy of his 3rd birthday. I can see him in the lads that I've got now, you know, because they all look so similar. You know, the last thing he asked for when I asked him what he wanted for his birthday was a birthday cake. He didn't get that birthday cake.
But you'd love the chance to give him a birthday cake.
God, yeah. On his birthday, when he was first taken, I did place a birthday cake on his resting place, but, you know, it should have been in front of his face.
On the 12th of February 1993, Robert Thompson and John Venables kidnapped, tortured and killed 2-year-old James Bulger in Liverpool. It was one of the most shocking crimes in modern British history. The toddler's murderers were both just 10 years old.
A lot of people will know what has happened to James, but they don't really know. They don't really know the detail. They don't really know what was in Venables and Thompson's head and what motivated them and what made them the way they were. What do you think this tells us about society, about what's available online, about grooming? What's the lesson to be learned?
There's a lot now that, you know, kids can learn through, you know, social media and stuff like that, but there was nothing like that back then. There was no mobile phones or nothing. So, you know, just taking that out of the, you know, the question, it's just pure evilness on their behalf.
How sick are they? Were they?
I can't call them sick because there's sick people out there who need doctors and nurses. They don't deserve anyone's time. You know, what they did, they took a baby's life and destroyed his family's lives in the proceeds of it.
And they didn't just take his life, they tortured him.
Yeah.
That's
in the most horrendous way that they could have taken a child.
You see, that's the bit that I find really difficult. There could have been an accident, they could have pushed him over, there could have been something that went wrong and he hit his head, but they didn't. They dwelt on this for a long time.
They planned to do that, what they done. They tried to abduct a kid 2 weeks before. So, you know, if they took that kid 2 weeks before, James is still being here, no doubt. But, you know, they carefully planned that. It was premeditated. So they knew that they were going out that day to take a child's life.
John Venables was released on licence in 2001, but recalled to prison 9 years later after indecent images of children were found on his computer. He was again released in 2013, only to be put behind bars again for the same offence. This time, the Parole Board were taking no chances.
Denise, when you got the phone call yesterday to say that Venables was not being released, how did that feel?
I was kind of numb. I think I still am in a state of shock because after 30 years, I finally feel like I'm getting listened to now, and everything that I've said in the past, you know, it's rung true, because I did say if the 2 of them weren't properly punished for the crime that they committed, they only spent just over 7 years in a young offenders. They never went to an adult prison. And I did say if they don't spend any time in a proper jail, either one or both of them will go on to re-offend and commit more crimes. And I was proven right with Venables.
Where do we go from here, Denise? Venables is detained again, but it could only be maybe for 2 years. You might have to go through all of this again.
You know, I've come 30 years fighting justice for James, and, you know, I'll do it for as long as I need to do it, or as long as I can do it. Until I get the proper justice, I feel like I've got some kind of justice for him now because he's been denied parole. And, you know, I am getting the backings of, you know, some MPs now, Dominic Raab and Alex Chalk, you know, what they've been saying to me, they've stood by their words, and, you know, they've helped me get some kind of justice, which I've never had before.
The government is pushing through an overhaul of the parole system, with new laws allowing ministers to block the release of the most dangerous criminals.
It just feels like now I'm just getting support from, you know, the MPs, because this is the first time I've got to meet them, and, you know, they've stuck to what they've told me.
Yeah. What would you say, Denise, to people? This is not me saying this, but I know there will be people watching and listening to us and say, for goodness sake, Venables and Thompson were 10 years old at the time. They were babies themselves. Well, how can you keep going on punishing them?
One of them needs punishing because he's behind bars again. If Venables gets out, let's make him an example. If he gets out, these people who were saying, well, they were only 10, you know, it's been 30 years now, let it go. Why should I? One, he was my son. He's not here to speak for himself, so I'm doing it for him. And two, if Venables does get out, these people who were saying, you know, let it go, if he went and killed one of their kids, they'd be saying to me, you should have fought harder. Yes. I mean, I know you've become another, you know, you've got another grandchild now. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I see pictures of you with your grandchildren. I can't do that.
Where are you at, Denise? If I was to ask you now, here we are in 2023, we're heading into Christmas. What state are you in?
I'm not in any state. I'm in a good place. I've got, you know, my husband, my 3 boys, I've got my family, my granddaughter. You know, I'm in a happy place. The only time I'm not is when something like this occurs and I've got to take on another fight, but it's my choice and I'll carry on doing it.
Do you live for James?
I live for my lads, all of my lads.
So you're not going to be simply defined by this one horrible aspect of your life?
No, because I'm I think I'm two people. I'm a mum, but I'm also a campaigner. And, you know, for as long as I've got breath in me, I will carry on campaigning to get justice, not just for me, but for anyone who needs it out there.
And for people who will say a prayer for you this Christmas, what would you say to them?
I'd say a prayer for James.
Say a prayer for Venables and Thompson?
No.
Why not?
They don't need prayers.
To people who say they need understanding, they need forgiveness.
They basically did get forgiveness, but one chose, he didn't want that forgiveness and carries on doing what he wants to do. He's not just a child murderer, he's also a paedophile. So they don't deserve any good. They've been given too many chances, especially Venables. You know, he's been given chance after chance, new rehabilitation, new names, this, that and the other, loads of money spent on him. You know, he didn't deserve that, but he got it. And look where he's ended up, back in prison.
Is there anything at all Venables could do that would lift him in terms of your estimation?
Yeah, he can stay in prison.
Denise Fergus there talking to our colleague Eamon Holmes. We are joined now by criminal lawyer Nick Freeman. It always astounds me, Nick, I don't know about you, how Denise Fergus is able to just simply keep going with what happened to her son.
Yeah, remarkable woman with massive courage and determination. And, you know, she says she's 2 women, and this is one aspect of her life that she will never give up on.
Absolutely. And is she right that these laws, when it comes to parole, need completely overhauling?
Yes, they do. In Venables' case, he was released in 2001. He was rearrested because he committed further similar associated cases of paedophilia, fascination with sex and children. He was locked up again. He then was granted parole again, and he abused the system again. So he's been given chance after chance, and there's been a huge amount of time and expense concentrated on him to try and help him with his problem. And at this last hearing, it's been concluded that, number one, he still poses a huge threat to the public, and that threat is not manageable. And quite pertinently, they say that he would take drugs secretly if he could, and watch inappropriate material. So he's not sorted the problem out. He's not being honest with his probation officer. He's trying to pull the wool over everyone's eyes. He chose, for example, that the hearing was conducted in private, as it often is, but he chose not to attend. And the reason he did that was so that he couldn't be cross-examined. He couldn't be asked questions about how he is, where he is. And if he really said that I'm a reformed character, he should be able to put himself in a position where he stands up to scrutiny and explains what he's done, where he is now, and how he feels he's safe. It's all very well saying, when you're not tested, I feel that I'm safe to be released on the streets. But that needs to be probed and questioned, and he's deprived this parole board of that. And of course, there are very skilled people on the parole board, psychologists. Of course, Denise Ferguson wasn't there, but her lawyer was there. But of course, no one's been able to ask him questions because he didn't appear. So the legislation, he's going to have another review probably in 2 years' time. And one of my concerns is, how many times you give someone another chance, because the family have to keep reliving the situation, or his family, his parents, James Bolger's parents. Every 2 years, it's life that they can't really move on with their life. And you think, yes, punishment's meant to be punitive and remedial. He's had his chance, and I think there needs to be a limit. But I'm not completely in favour of the Lord Chancellor, the Secretary of Justice, being able to block it, because I think we then have too much interference from the government. I think ultimately the decision has to be the parole board, and I think it's right they make representations, but I do think we need to limit the amount of reviews that somebody can have. He's had 2 opportunities, and he's completely ignored those. He's not in any better place now than he was then, and he's not cooperating, and he's not being honest with himself.
What do you think the limit should be then, Nick? Because, you talk about the huge amounts of money that has been spent on Venables. Just hearing from Denise there, she thinks that the system has been preferential to him, really, protected his identity when he has been released, and the money spent on him as well. And as you say, he's already been given 2 chances. He's already been released twice and recalled back to prison. And as you said, that the 2 years, it's so cruel for the family and Denise, every 2 years, feeling as though he could be released. I believe many people out there want to believe in rehabilitation, would like to believe that people can change. But does it come to a point with someone like Venables where they can't change? They are just intrinsically evil, and perhaps it should be something like 10, 15 years before the next parole?
Well, I think you're absolutely spot on. As you were asking me the question, in my mind, I was thinking of 10 years. That there shouldn't be an application less than 10 years. It's important to bear in mind, he was 10 years old when he committed this heinous crime. So he was a child himself. And it's also important to bear in mind, I think we're 30 years on now, and that they've concluded that he still poses a significant threat to children, which is unmanageable. So if it hasn't worked after 30 years, with the huge investment and expense and, the professionalism that's gone into trying to help him in a very preferential way, one has to ask the question, is it ever really seriously going to happen? Is he ever going to be in a situation where he no longer poses a threat? I'm not qualified to say that, but after 30 years, you have to conclude it's probably unlikely, isn't it? Because he's had more than ample opportunity. And he's not going to succeed in pulling the wool over people's eyes. So to answer your question, I would say a minimum of 10 years, He didn't get a whole life sentence, but it is possible that he will spend the rest of his life behind bars.
And Nick, both John Venables and Robert Thompson were sentenced to indefinite detention at the time when, yes, they were still children, but many would argue they were 10 years old. They knew exactly that what they were doing was abhorrent. They are child killers. Should they have had, even at that age, a whole life tariff?
No, definitely not. At the age of 10, they were just at the age of criminal liability. It was 10 in 1993. And so, without question, the punishment that was imposed was the right punishment because they were children. They were just within that age where they could be criminally liable. The court was quite satisfied. They knew the distinction between right and wrong. Therefore, they proceeded to trial and they were both convicted. But I think it would have been wholly wrong and inappropriate. And I'm not in any way diminishing the horrendous crime that they committed. But you do have to remember, number one, their age and the purpose of sentencing. And it's not just to punish. There is also this remedial aspect, which has to be right in a human society, more so when you're dealing with somebody who was just at the age of criminal culpability. Without question, the right procedures have been adopted. Thompson has taken advantage of it. As far as we're aware, he's not troubled the courts at all since his release in 2001. Venables is a very different story.
OK, Nick Freeman, criminal lawyer, very good to speak to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And still 30 years on, those images, just as we were seeing there, of little James Bulger being snatched from that shopping centre, they are still absolutely haunting.
Yeah, that's the word I was going to use as well. And so moving to hear from Denise Fergus, what an extraordinary woman she is and so courageous as well. So thank you so much for speaking to our colleague Eamon Holmes. Really good interview. Well, do stay with us. We're expecting the result of Prince Harry's High Court case on phone hacking any moment now. We've got Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent there at the Royal Courts of Justice. We'll bring that to you as soon as we have it, just after 10:30.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Stay with us.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, it's 10:26. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Pip Thompson and me, Ellie Costello.
Otherwise known as Holly and Ivy.
Yeah. Which we're calling each other today, aren't we? It's very festive in here, we love it.
We've even been singing it around the newsroom. Everybody's scurrying away. Now, a cost of living crisis, train strikes and poor weather have turned many people off the high street this holiday season.
So we're asking, will Christmas look different this year, and will there be fewer presents under the tree? Well, they're very important questions, and here to talk us through it is retail expert and Director of Rendell Intelligence and Insights, Diane Well. Very good to see you this morning, Diane. Thank you so much for your company. So do you think Christmas is going to look a little bit different for lots and lots of families this year, especially with the cost of living crisis? It's going to be difficult, isn't it, for people to put presents under the tree?
Yes, I mean, this year is going to be interesting. I mean, we've had cost of living crises before, of course, but we've had a few years, notwithstanding the COVID period, where things were quite healthy economically. So certainly people will be being cautious, exercising more caution around what they spend on gifts. They're going to spend less, inevitably, a lot of people. But I think in terms of the whole structure of Christmas itself for families, that will remain the same. We've heard from a lot of researchers that people are steadfastly refusing to compromise on Christmas lunch. That is a key element of Christmas. So yes, they may well be sacrificing some element of gift buying and perhaps trading down or buying fewer, but the structure of Christmas Day itself will remain.
And what about something that's in the news today, Diane, about gift buying for your teacher? I mean, that puts the price up for parents, doesn't it, if they feel obliged to get a gift in. But also, what about kids that, say, are at secondary school? I mean, you could spend a fortune on presents for teachers. Not that I'm saying they don't deserve them.
When I was young... No, I mean, when I was young, we used to buy a present for our teacher. So I think this is a long-standing thing. But I think there are lots of options for people to buy presents across the whole range of prices. And it is really only a token of appreciation after all. So people shouldn't go mad on things like that. But certainly I think people will be trading down. This is really where Black Friday comes in, and people take that opportunity to get some discounts early on in the period. And enjoy also the start of the Christmas festivities around the end of November, beginning of December, which of course is Black Friday. It's Black Friday week. So that really helps kickstart the Christmas period. But people will definitely be more cautious this year than they have been, because of course in previous years we had some savings that people amassed through COVID because we weren't going out and we weren't going away. So people felt a little bit more affluent anyway, because we hadn't been doing the things that we done. So this year has become a bit of a shock for a lot of people.
Is the way that we're shopping changing, Diane? Are people shopping at the end of November? Are they going for the Black Friday sales, trying to get a bargain that way? Or are people leaving it as late as possible? What are you finding?
I think the evidence is pointing to the fact that Black Friday is an established part of the retail calendar. Consumers like it. Of course they do. It's an opportunity to kickstart that Christmas trading. When you go out on Black Friday, all the lights are up. The Christmas trees are up, all the retailers have put their Christmas windows in place. So you do feel very festive. And that offers the opportunity to enjoy that festivity and the feeling of Christmas, but also get some discounts, which is great. Spread it across 2 paydays, which does help. And then that creates a bit of a lull. It's what I call a dumbbell effect. So you get this big surge around Black Friday. It may not be perhaps as successful as people wanted it to be, but it's still a bigger surge than it would have been. And then we have a bit of a lull, and then it ramps up. Really, from now on, this weekend, it will start to really ramp up towards Christmas Day itself in terms of how many people go out to visit destinations and what they spend.
OK, Diane, well, thank you so much. Retail expert talking to us there. Why don't we all just get our gifts in January and be super organised?
Well, we did quite well at Black Friday, didn't we?
We did, but I'm just thinking if you get them in January, you really will get a bargain.
In the sales.
My mum got all her Christmas decorations in January.
Did she?
Yeah,
that's the way to do it.
50-75% off.
Maybe we can do that in January for next year. Get ourselves organised. The cost of things has considerably gone up, though. I was Christmas shopping this week, and I was really quite shocked at how much things have gone up in the past year. Let us know if you've been finding that at home whilst you be doing your Christmas shopping. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Still to come here on Britain's Newsroom, Judgment Day for Harry. Any moment now, the Duke of Sussex will find out whether he's won his phone hacking lawsuit against the publisher Mirror Group newspapers.
That and much more after your morning news with Lisa.
It's 10:32. I'm Lisa Hartle in the GB Newsroom. One person has died and another is in a critical condition after a boat carrying migrants across the Channel got into difficulty overnight. The French Coast Guard was alerted just after 1 a.m. to reports that a boat was sinking about 5 miles off the coast of Dunkirk. 66 people have been rescued after one side of the boat deflated. The Coast Guard says air and sea searches are still underway. UK police are working with French authorities to bring back a British schoolboy who went missing 6 years ago. Alex Batty, who is now 17, went missing in 2017 after going on a family holiday to Spain. Detectives believe he was abducted by his mother to live an alternative lifestyle abroad. The boy says he wants to see his grandmother and have a normal future. Prince Harry's lawyers were seen arriving in court this morning as the royal is set to find out the outcome of a hacking claim against a tabloid newspaper publisher. The Duke of Sussex is suing Mirror Group newspapers for damages, claiming its journalists gathered information by deception and unlawful means, such as phone hacking. The Mirror Group lawyers rejected the allegations as entirely speculative. NatWest Group says there is no evidence of discrimination due to political views in Coutts' decision to close customer accounts. The banking group says lawyers analysed 84 account closures from the 2 years before the review was commissioned. But NatWest admits lessons need to be learned. It's after Nigel Farage said that his Coutts bank account was shut down because the bank disagreed with his political beliefs. You can get more on all of those stories by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
For stunning gold and silver coins you'll always value, Rosland Gold proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2781 and €1.1662. The price of gold is £1,597.86 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 7,637 points.
Rosland Gold proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Well, don't go anywhere. Mr Justice Fancourt has just started delivering a summary of his judgment in Prince Harry's hacking case against the Mirror Group newspapers. We'll have more on that after this short break. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's almost 22:11. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Ellie Costello and Pip Thompson. And we do know that Mr Justice Fancourt has started delivering a summary of his judgment in Prince Harry's hacking case against the publisher of the Daily Mirror. We will join our royal correspondent any minute now to get the very latest on that. But in the studio, we're joined by political commentator Matthew Stadlin and broadcaster Mike Parry. Good morning to you both. This verdict then, expected any second. It's quite a moment for Prince Harry, isn't it, Matthew? He'll be listening, watching from California, even though there's quite a time difference.
He will, and he'll be absolutely desperate for vindication. But it's really difficult, isn't it, to talk about this until we actually know what the result of the case is. I think the Mirror Group, right at the start of this process, apologised to Prince Harry. So we'll see what the judgment holds in store. I mean, let's remember the News of the World, and you'll know this, that was shut down, wasn't it, because of hacking. So I'm not going to speculate, but it's a big moment.
Yeah, News of the World obviously went down because of the Millie Dowler stuff, OK? And that's been controversial ever since because there was a bit of a newspaper war going on, you know, between Mr Murdoch's organisation and The Guardian and all that. But the facts are much clearer here. It's not been a good week so far for Harry. I think you'll find on Monday Prince Harry ordered to pay £50,000 to the Mail Group, which was an interim payment towards legal costs, because that's one of 5 cases going on between Prince Harry and various media groups. So a lot rests on this this verdict today for Harry, for his reputation and for his standing in this country.
The newspapers do sometimes sort of tend to club together on the Harry story, because you've got the right-leaning Daily Mail perhaps almost sending out a sort of smoke signal of sympathy to the Mirror, because they've got Harry dressed up here by his impersonator, by the actor, in The Crown, with a swastika in his arm.
Hold it up a little bit, Matthew.
Well, I mean, do we want to see it?
Well, it's just if you're describing it, it helps just to quickly see it. OK,
I mean,
there we go.
the point I'm making is that on the day of this huge judgment, you've got Prince Harry wearing a swastika, because that's what he did. Do you remember?
Yeah.
When he dressed up.
That was a News of the World story as well.
When he dressed up as a Nazi. So there's a sense in which if you take on the tabloids, you take on one tabloid, you're taking on all of them.
There is no politics in this. I understand exactly what you're saying, but all the newspapers, particularly in the tabloid world, are saying we have a code of behaviour which we feel is acceptable. We don't think it needs to be taken apart in the courts. And also, of course, the very future of newspapers is at stake in this country. Circulations are probably 1/4 of what they were when I worked in Fleet Street 25 years ago. So they are fighting for their lives.
What is so difficult, I was saying to Pip just before we came on air, I was covering, it wasn't Prince Harry's day in court, but it was Nikki Sanderson, the Coronation Street actress.
Yes.
And what is so difficult in this case, and it will be in the others that Prince Harry is taking out against other newspaper groups, is the evidence. You can say that something's been done unlawfully, that it's been obtained unlawfully, but it's very, very difficult to prove. I mean, the Mirror newspaper group, in this case, said it came from legitimate sources, that someone tipped them off.
Yeah,
it's very difficult to prove otherwise.
Ellie, you're so absolutely right, because a source can come to you fourth hand. For instance, if there's a worker in Buckingham Palace that then goes for a drink after work in a pub that is known to Fleet Street reporters, and they overhear something, how can you ever prove where the information came from, except that Harry's lawyers seem to be saying almost everything that was found out about him came from phones being hacked. But again, you've got to prove that to make sure you've got your facts absolutely right. And we all know as journalists, the sources for information are everywhere.
And let's not forget that one of the reasons this is such a massive story is because you've got two huge British institutions. You've got the tabloid press, and then you've got the monarchy. And, of course, Harry has stepped away from the monarchy, which is perhaps what has allowed him to pursue this with the vigour with which he has. But this cuts right to the heart of the way our country is run, outside of Westminster, because the tabloids have huge influence and the royal family has huge influence. And this is a clash.
Let's just jump in straight to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker.
Pip, I have some breaking news from the High Court in London. The judge has ruled there was extensive phone hacking by Mirror Group newspapers from 2006 until 2011, even to some extent during the Leveson inquiry into media standards. That is what the High Court judge, Mr. Justice Fancourt, has ruled so far. He is, as we understand it, still delivering his full decision, but the information we have so far is that there was extensive phone hacking by Mirror Group newspapers from 2006 until 2011, and even to some extent during the Leveson inquiry into media standards. Now, you have to remember, this case does not just involve Prince Harry, it involves a number of other high-profile figures. As to the specifics, whether or not Prince Harry's 33 articles, which were tested as part of this trial, if he himself is a victim of phone hacking, we do not have that information yet. As soon as we do, we'll bring it straight to you. But remember, Mirror Group newspapers denied any allegations of phone hacking. The judge has ruled that there was extensive phone hacking.
OK, Cameron Walker there for us at the Royal Courts of Justice. Thank you very much indeed. So that breaking news there, that there was extensive phone hacking by Mirror Group newspapers from 2006 to 2011. So, Matthew, it does look as though you're talking about vindication for Prince Harry. It looks so far as though he could have been vindicated.
I mean, this is a huge story, isn't it? This is one of our major national newspapers being found to have indulged in a terrible, terrible practice. But this is going to reverberate, I think, with those who've been following this story and those who haven't. And as you say, Ellie, Prince Harry is going to be looking on from wherever he is on the west coast of America. He will be delighted.
Well, I'm a little bit short of information here because your old correspondent said the judge had extensive phone hacking over 5 years, as I picked it up. But there was extensive phone hacking in Fleet Street for 10 years. But does that mean specifically they're talking about the Harry stories?
Well, no, it's not confirmed yet whether Prince Harry is a victim. Let's just be clear, Mike, because you know us, being a journalist yourself, what exactly phone hacking is. Just tell our viewers and listeners.
Phone hacking, believe it or not, when it first started, was not illegal. What it was, when the mobile phone... I mean, look, I didn't get my first mobile phone until I'd been in Fleet Street 10 years. When you got one, then you had this magical machine and you could talk to your news desk and all that. And we thought that's all it was. However, very clever people got to intercept messages left on phones, OK? So they couldn't intercept you. Supposing you were talking to Prince Harry, they can't intercept that. But if you were close enough to Prince Harry, not to get him to answer the phone, but to leave a message, that message could then be intercepted, you picked it up, you acquired information which you had no right to know about, but initially it wasn't illegal. Then, of course, the law was tightened up to make it illegal, but it didn't change the activities of a lot of Fleet Street newspapers in obtaining information illegally.
Let me just explain why it's such a damaging thing, because apart from the fact that it is a massive breach of someone's privacy, you will have a famous person, and they're human beings like the rest of us, and a story will appear in the newspaper that they haven't told anyone. Maybe they've told their mum about it, and then because it's in the papers, they're thinking, how on earth did it get into the papers? And then they start blaming, say, their mother, because she is the only person that they've confided in. And so it makes people... It's a bit like gaslighting. It makes people think they're going mad and not trust their nearest and dearest.
Also, when Prince Harry gave his evidence earlier this year, he talked about how difficult it was to trust people, how it wrecked relationships.
Yes, that's my point.
Oh, absolutely. One of the first examples of it coming out was involving Prince William, when Prince William left a message for somebody, a close confidant of his, to say that he had a damaged knee, right? That story appeared in a newspaper the following weekend, and that is exactly what Matt's just talking about. William thought, who on earth could possibly have given this information about me to a newspaper when only 3 people know? I had a personal case. After a Wembley international, an England footballer who I got on very well with, and in fact was writing stuff for him, rang me and told me about something that Sven-Göran Eriksson had said to him after the game, OK? And only I knew that, and that appeared in a Sunday newspaper, and that really fractured my relationship with that footballer who accused me, I mean, directly, of saying, why did you go and tell them?
And imagine it's your own mother or your own father. They're the only person in the world you've shared this story with, and suddenly it is in a national newspaper. Your sort of heart sinks through your body. You don't trust your own mum anymore. We've heard testimony of people who have had their phones hacked, where it's been proven, and the devastating consequences are extraordinary. I think what perhaps turned the public mood and made it into sort of a concrete feeling of outrage was, though, the Millie Dowler story, wasn't it? Because celebrities, I think that there's not that much empathy for celebrities, even though, as I say, they are human beings like the rest of us, but that story was to turn the tide.
Oh, it did, because the public perception was that they were deleting messages off the phone of a young girl who'd been kidnapped, attacked and murdered, and the most heartless and cruel exploitation of the situation by nasty tabloid journalists. I mean, look, you can't defend that sort of behaviour, but in the end, it was very unclear what exactly happened. But that certainly, I mean, raised the, you know, the public concern about it enormously, absolutely.
So we've heard from Justice Fancourt this morning, extensive phone hacking by Mirror Group newspapers between 2006 and 2011. There are now going to be very difficult questions, aren't there, about who knew what at the newspaper group?
Well, again, you're getting back to the News of the World closing down, OK? Who, in the end, was in charge? And we can't name names because some of the people
Mike,
are still there and some of them aren't.
Apologies, we need to go to Cameron Walker, our Royal correspondent. Cameron.
Well, it's partly good news for Prince Harry, Pip. Prince Harry has won 15 out of the 33 articles in his phone hacking lawsuit against the publisher of the Daily Mirror, Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Mirror Group newspapers. Prince Harry, I think, will see this certainly as a massive victory for him and his pursuit of the British tabloid press. He believes he is very much a victim of unlawful information gathering. The judge, it looks like, believes him as well, at least on 15 of the 33 articles being tested. Mirror Group newspapers their lawyers try to argue that a lot of the evidence Prince Harry and his lawyers were presenting was very circumstantial, particularly when it comes to phone hacking. We just heard in the last couple of minutes, of course, that the judge has ruled there was extensive phone hacking between 2006 and 2011. The 33 articles being tested for Prince Harry actually date back to 1991. We don't have the full judgment yet as to whether these 15 articles which Prince Harry has won is about phone hacking, or is it about using private investigators to gain unlawful information, or indeed blagging or so-called a deception to get information. I've just received another bit of information as well. Sorry, it's all happening in real time, I'm afraid. Prince Harry was a victim of unlawful information gathering by Mirror Group newspapers, as we've just heard. The Duke of Sussex phone was probably hacked to a modest extent by Mirror Group newspapers. That is what Mr. Justice Fancourt has ruled. Again, I reiterate, Mirror Group newspapers denied all allegations of phone hacking, and I think the newspaper group itself and indeed former editors and journalists there are going to have some pretty uncomfortable questions to answer. But Prince Harry, I think, will feel that he has been vindicated here. He has proven in a high court that his phone was probably hacked to a modest extent. So Prince Harry, in a sense, has been vindicated. But of course, this is far from over, because we're still receiving what the judge is saying in his full ruling, and this is just one of several high-profile cases Prince Harry has going through the High Court, separate cases against other British media publications and the British government over security. But nonetheless, today, a significant win for Prince Harry and the other claimants in this case.
OK, Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent there for us at the Royal Courts of Justice. Thank you very much for that update. And invite in again our panel, Mike Parry and Matthew Stadlin. And Matthew, we'll start with you. Prince Harry wins 15 out of 33 articles in this phone hacking lawsuit. And just, sorry, a bit of extra information as well. Mr. Justice Fancourt says the claims of soap actress Nikki Sanderson and the ex-wife of comedian Paul Whitehouse, Fiona Whiteman, those claims are barred because times for their claims have expired.
It's interesting because, as I said earlier, right at the start of the trial, so 7 months ago, the High Court was told that the Mirror, the Daily Mirror newspaper itself, apologised unreservedly to Prince Harry for unlawfully gathering information about him. So some of this seems to have been established a long time ago, right at the start of the process. Interesting, the word probably, that Harry's phone was probably hacked. Just to step back from this for a moment.
Matthew, Prince Harry has won £140,600 in damages. The judge has just ruled that.
I suspect that won't interest him, and I think that some people might lack empathy for Harry because they'll think of him as a man of money and power and influence. But actually, and you might disagree or agree, Mike, taking on the tabloid press in this country for anyone is not an easy thing to do. And to do it in court where you're going to be asked robust questions is actually a very challenging thing to do. So I actually have quite a lot of respect for Harry on this.
Only the rich can take on the tabloid press in this country. Believe me, they just wear you down until you run away. This is a massive victory for Harry. I mean, really massive. You've got to remember, when it all started, the phone hacking, it was The Sun or the News of the World. But in the background, other media groups were doing it, and this has proven another one has been doing it. It's massive because it helps Harry's credibility.
Mike, thank you for the minute. We will have more reaction to Prince Harry's phone being hacked. That has just come from the High Court.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a brighter day out there for southeastern areas than yesterday, but cloud will thicken for the rest of us from the west. So it's a bit of a bright start across central and eastern areas. Perhaps a little chilly out there for you. Any mist and fog should clear over the next few hours and temperatures should rise quite quickly. Further west, though, we'll see quite a lot of cloud building through the course of the afternoon and some drizzly rain starting to arrive across parts of Wales as well as much of northern Scotland. But a southerly breeze will start to pick up those temperatures, so highs of around 11 or 12 degrees in the west, but a little bit cooler further east. Further east, it stays dry through much of this evening, but the cloud will build from the west and across parts of Wales, northern England and much of Scotland. It will stay quite dull through the evening with some drizzly rain. The winds will also start to pick up overnight tonight, and that will hold the temperatures up well above the average for this time of year. Parts of northern Scotland could not dip below 11 degrees tonight. So it'll be a mild start to the weekend. Many southern areas will stay dry through much of the day on Saturday, but it will be fairly cloudy. The further north and west you are through Saturday, the more likely you are to see some rain. And in fact, the far northwest of Scotland will see some quite persistent rain start to arrive from lunchtime on Saturday, but it will stay very mild. Have a great day, and I'll see you later.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Prince Harry's phone was hacked by Mirror Group newspapers and he's won £140,000, £600 in damages. We'll have more on that after this short break.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Carson, this Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 11 a.m. on Friday the 15th of December. This is Britain's Newsroom with Ellie Costello and Pip Thompson.
There's only one story in town. Victory for Harry. Prince Harry has been awarded just over £140,000 after bringing a High Court phone hacking claim against Mirror Group newspapers. A High Court judge has ruled there was extensive phone hacking by Mirror Group newspapers from 2006 to 2011.
The judgment is still being delivered at the High Court right now. We will bring you the very latest. Get in touch with us as well with your views on what we're talking about this morning. gbviews@gbnews.com. Now your latest headlines with Lisa.
Good morning. It's just after 11 o'clock. I'm Lisa Hartle in the GB Newsroom. Prince Harry has been awarded more than £140,000 in damages following a phone hacking lawsuit against Mirror Group newspapers. The High Court ruled there was extensive phone hacking by the tabloid paper between 2006 and 2011. The judge also said the Duke of Sussex's phone was probably hacked to a modest extent. It comes as Prince Harry has sued for damages, claiming its journalists gathered information by deception and unlawful means such as phone hacking. One person has died and another is in a critical condition after a boat carrying migrants across the Channel got into difficulty overnight. The French Coast Guard was alerted just after 1 a.m. to reports that a boat was sinking about 5 miles off the coast of Dunkirk. More than 60 people have been rescued after one side of the boat deflated. The Coast Guard says air and sea searches are still underway. Chair of the Labour Party, Annalise Dodds, says the government is not working to stop the root cause of the small boat crossings.
Labour wouldn't be spending that money on Rwanda. It's eye-wateringly expensive. £400 million, it appears, is going to be spent on that scheme, and yet it would only cover about 1% of people who are arriving in the UK. Labour does have a different approach, and above all, it's focused on breaking up those criminal gangs.
UK police are working with French authorities to bring back a British schoolboy who went missing 6 years ago. Alex Batty, who is now 17, went missing in 2017 after going on a family holiday to Spain. Detectives believe he was abducted by his mother to live an alternative lifestyle abroad. The boy says he wants to see his grandmother and have a normal future. Assistant Chief Constable from Greater Manchester Police, Chris Sykes, gave this update earlier. A warning, this video contains flashing images.
Our main priority now is to see Alex returned home to his family in the UK, and our investigation team are working around the clock with partner agencies and the French authorities to ensure they are all fully supported. Alex and his family remain our focus, and we still have some work to do in establishing the full circumstances surrounding his disappearance and where he has been in all those years.
Detectives continue to search for a mother of 3 in Norwich as her family marks a week since her disappearance. Gaynor Lord went missing after leaving work in Norwich city centre last Friday. Police say there is a high probability that the 55-year-old went into the River Wensum, where a huge search is being conducted by specialist divers. The force also released CCTV footage of what they believe is the last sighting of Ms Lord. Met Police officers will be trained to identify and call out sexism and misogyny. It's part of the force's 10-point plan outlining a series of commitments aimed at restoring public trust. It follows recent police scandals, including the unmasking of former officer David Carrick as a serial abuser and rapist. Russia has launched more than 40 drones and 6 missiles at Ukraine overnight. More than 11 people have been injured, including 3 children, after over a dozen buildings were damaged in the southern region of Odessa. Ukraine also says Russia attacked one of their ports and damaged the warehouses of 2 train storage facilities. Relatives of 2 people killed at a London music venue have renewed their appeal for information 1 year on from a fatal crush. 23-year-old security guard Gabby Hutchinson and 33-year-old Rebecca Iku Mello were killed when fans without tickets tried to force their way into the Brixton Academy last year. Met Police urged the council to remove the venue's licence, but it is allowed to continue operating as long as it meets new conditions. The Met has released CCTV images of people they wish to speak to about the incident and confirmed that 1 arrest had been made. NatWest Group says there is no evidence of discrimination due to political views in Coutts' decision to close customer accounts. The banking group says lawyers analysed 84 account closures from the 2 years before the review was commissioned. But NatWest admits lessons need to be learned. It's after Nigel Farage said his Coutts bank account was shut down because the bank disagreed with his political beliefs. This is GB News across the UK, on TV, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now it's back to Pip and Ellie.
Thanks, Lisa. Now, the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, has been awarded £140,000 after bringing a High Court phone hacking claim against Mirror Group newspapers.
Let's go straight to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Cameron, I understand the judge has been making more comments in the last few moments.
Yeah, he certainly has, Pip. Just to recap what we know so far, the judge has ruled there was extensive phone hacking at Mirror Group newspapers from 2006 until 2011. He said that the Duke of Sussex's phone was probably hacked to a modest extent by Mirror Group newspapers, and he has ruled that the Duke of Sussex should be awarded £140,600 in compensation. Now, the judge has been delivering more of his decision. I'm just getting that up for you now. He said, in summary of the ruling, Mr. Justice Fancourt says that I have found that the Duke's case of voicemail interception, in other words, phone hacking, and unlawful information gathering proved in part only. I found that 15 out of the 33 articles that were tried were the product of phone hacking of his mobile phone or the mobile phones of those closest to him, the product of unlawful information gathering. He said he considers that his phone was only hacked to a modest extent and that this was probably carefully controlled by certain people at each newspaper for Mirror Group newspapers. He also went on to say that, however, it did happen, as in phone hacking, on occasions from about the end of 2003 until April 2009. There was a tendency for the Duke in his evidence to assume that everything published was of the product of voicemail interception or phone hacking. The judge disagrees with Prince Harry on that point and says that the reason Prince Harry probably believed that is because phone hacking was rife within Mirror Group at the time. But he said phone hacking was not the only journalistic tool at the time in relation to these articles. Now, we have also had a statement in the last few minutes from Mirror Group newspapers. A Mirror Group newspaper spokesperson said, "We welcome today's judgment that gives the business the necessary clarity to move forward from events that took place many years ago. Where historical wrongdoing has taken place, we apologise unreservedly, have taken full responsibility and paid appropriate compensation." Now, this will be seen by Prince Harry, who it's understood was watching or listening to proceedings from the other side of the Atlantic in California. This will be seen to him as a significant victory. He sees it as his life's mission to take on the British tabloid press. He certainly feels he was a victim of unlawful information gathering and intrusive behaviour to get stories about him between the periods 1991 until 2011. The judge partly agrees with him. He's one on 15 of the 33 articles being tested in this case, including phone hacking, something that throughout this 7-week trial, MGM lawyers and Mirror Group newspaper had completely denied. But this isn't just Prince Harry. A number of other high-profile people were involved in this case too, including Fiona Whiteman, actress Nikki Sanderson as well, all of them teaming up really to try and get some kind of vindication against Mirror Group newspapers, which it appears in part they have succeeded in doing. Of course, a lot of questions to answer still for Mirror Group newspapers.
And Cameron, there are a number of other claims, aren't there, being brought by Prince Harry. It's not over yet as far as he's concerned.
No, certainly not, Pip. This was one of 5 civil cases Prince Harry is dragging through the High Courts here in London. This has now concluded, the Mirror Group newspapers, about unlawful information gathering. He also has 2 other separate claims against British tabloid organisations about alleged unlawful information gathering. One against News Group newspapers, the publishers of The Sun and the now defunct News of the World, and one against Associated Newspapers, which is the publisher of the Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday. Prince Harry's also bringing a separate claim against Associated Newspapers about an article written about him in the Mail on Sunday, which accused him or his PR team of spinning the narrative when it came to his security to put him into the positive light. So Prince Harry's brought a defamation claim, a separate defamation claim against Associated Newspapers. And then the final one is against the British government. And that's because they decided, or a Home Office committee decided, not to provide Prince Harry with the same security to the same extent when he decided to step back as a senior working member of the royal family. He was dealt a bit of a blow earlier this year when it came to his security, because he tried to bring out another separate claim against the British government to do with them not allowing him to pay for his own police protection, but the judge dismissed that earlier this year. Of course, these are all separate cases and different judges, but today this is all about Mirror Group newspapers, Daily Mirror, Sunday People, and it looks like there was, according to the judge, there was extensive phone hacking at the publication during this time period, and Prince Harry was a victim on 15 out of the 33 articles being tested, and has been has been given more than £100,000 in compensation.
OK, Cameron Walker there for us at the Royal Courts of Justice. Thank you very much indeed. And we have just been told the full judgment has been published. It amounts to 386 pages. So I'm sure Cameron will be reading through that ruling now, and we'll bring you all of the key details here on GB News. But for now, we're joined by the royal broadcaster and historian Rafe Hadel-Manku. Very good to see you this morning, Rafe. And will Prince Harry see this as a victory? 15 out of the 33 articles, that is less than half. And he was going for £440,000 in damages, and he's received £140,000. Do you think he will still see this as a significant victory?
Yes, I think, after a terrible year, he's managed to snatch a small victory from defeat. Coincidentally, yesterday, the King was himself touring the Royal Courts of Justice to celebrate the judiciary. Today, it's Prince Harry who's definitely celebrating the judiciary. It's hard to overstate how important this was to Prince Harry. This was never about money. That the amounts being claimed here are really a pocket change to him. This is about a lifelong mission that he thinks he has to basically seek justice for what he regards as intrusion into his life. Starting back from the death of his mother, of course, which we know he associated with the media, but also his inability to have meaningful relationships with people. Chelsea Davy, one of the people named in this lawsuit, and the difficulty he had in his relationship with her. And I think his legacy, ultimately, he sees it as his life's work for his legacy to be taming and controlling the British media. And this does go some way towards that. I mean, this now, of course, leads to big questions for Mirror Group. People will want to know who actually oversaw this, who approved these phone hacking and these other illegal means by which private investigators were getting information. Piers Morgan was named several times in this court case, even though he himself did not appear.
Piers Morgan's always denied being involved in phone hacking.
He's always denied that. He's always denied that, and we'll need to see in the ruling, because the judge has said he may actually make statements about Piers Morgan. Whether that's in there or not, we'll have to wait and see. But there'll be big questions there. And this also now incentivises potentially dozens of other celebrities who believe that they also had their phones hacked or had information obtained by other means through blagging and so forth. And of course, this comes at a time where Reach, which is the parent company for Mirror Group of newspapers, is not doing anywhere near as well financially as it had done previously. They've been having cutbacks and layoffs. And of course, the prospect, therefore, of huge punitive damages from all of these potential other complainants is something which I think will be causing a lot of worry in those halls of power at the moment for Mirror Group. But for Prince Harry, certainly I think he can end the year, actually, with an early Christmas present.
Mm-hmm. And do you think this will trigger more claims from other celebrities and public figures?
I think it's inevitable. Of course, at the same time, we also have a court case going on now with Prince Harry and Elton John and so forth against the Daily Mail along similar lines. You know, as Cameron said, this is one of 4 cases, although this is by far the biggest case. And I think it's only going to embolden people who feel, of course, that they've been unfairly treated here. Of course, you have Hacked Off, the organisation with which Hugh Grant's very involved, which has been campaigning on this issue. They certainly, we can expect, will be at least energised and mobilised by this. So certainly there's every opportunity here. But as you say, only 15 out of the 33 sample cases. Now, those were sample cases from a much broader range of articles. There were over 140 articles that Prince Harry's team thought had been obtained through using illicit methods. And they only chose to have 33 of those examined in court. Whether the remaining 110 or so were the result of phone hacking, we'll never know now, but one presumes those 33 were the ones that were the most egregious. So perhaps only 15 of the 140 actually were, but that's beside the point. The principle is that phone hacking and other means of obtaining information were part of
Right, just hold that thought. We're just hearing from Prince Harry's legal team now. Let's see if we can take...
It will now be clear, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, is unable to be present today due to the short notice which was given of the hearing. However, he's prepared a statement on this momentous win, which I will now share on his behalf. Today is a great day for truth, as well as accountability. The court has ruled that unlawful and criminal activities were carried out at all 3 Mirror Group newspaper titles, The Mirror, The Sunday Mirror and The People, on a habitual and widespread basis for over more than a decade. I'd like to thank my legal team for so successfully dismantling the sworn testimony of Mirror Group's senior executives, legal department and journalists who at least turned up to court, unlike their colleagues who were perhaps too afraid to do so. This case is not just about hacking. It is about a systemic practice of unlawful and appalling behaviour, followed by cover-ups and destruction of evidence, the shocking scale of which can only be revealed through these proceedings. The court has found that Mirror Group's principal board directors, their legal department, senior executives and editors such as Piers Morgan clearly knew about or were involved in these illegal activities. Between them, they even went as far as lying under oath to Parliament during the Leveson inquiry, to the Stock Exchange and to us all ever since. The journey to justice can be a slow and painful one, and since bringing my claim almost 5 years ago, defamatory stories and intimidating tactics have been deployed against me and at my family's expense. And so, as I too have learnt through this process, patience is in fact a virtue, especially in the face of vendetta journalism. I hope that the court's findings will serve as a warning to all media organisations who have employed these practices and then similarly lied about them. Mirror Group's actions were so calculated and misleading that their pattern of destroying evidence and concealing their unlawful behaviour continued into the litigation itself, and as the judge has ruled, even to this day. I am happy happy to have won the case, especially given that this trial only looked at a quarter of my entire claim. Even on just that, it is clear Mirror Group's persistent attempts to suggest that my claim was, to quote their counsel, fantastical, in the realms of total speculation, and there was simply no evidence at all to suggest I was hacked. Zilch, zero, nil, nada, niente, absolutely nothing. All of that was total nonsense and was used maliciously to attack my character and credibility. However, as Mirror Group intended, those hollow sound bites were blasted across front pages and across online platforms and into the next day's morning television shows. The court has in fact confirmed that all 4 claimants were subjected to voicemail interception and unlawful information gathering, but no one would have believed that was the case given how this trial was covered in the UK. My commitment to seeing this case through is based on my belief in our need and collective right to a free and honest press, and one which is properly accountable when necessary. That is what we need in Britain and across the globe. Anything else is poisoning the well for a profession we all depend on. The acts listed in this judgment are prime examples of what happens when the power of the press is abused. I respectfully call upon the authorities, the financial regulator, the stock market who were deliberately deceived by Mirror Group, and indeed the Metropolitan Police and prosecuting authorities to do their duty for the British public and to investigate bringing charges against the company and those who have broken the law. Today's ruling is vindicating and affirming. I've been told that slaying dragons will get you burned, but in light of today's victory and the importance of doing what is needed for a free and honest press, it is a worthwhile price to pay. The mission continues. Thank you very much.
So that is Prince Harry's lawyer, David Sherborne, reading out a statement on behalf of the Duke of Sussex. And it is absolutely damning, and he ended it by saying he's calling on the stock market and the Met Police to do their duty and investigate the publisher. So much that he said there, Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent, you're outside the High Court. What did you make of that statement there from the Duke of Sussex?
That was an incredibly significant and strong statement from Prince Harry. We've been saying all morning, haven't we, that he sees this as his life's mission to change the way the British press operates and to hold those powerful people to account. And we certainly got much more than a sense there during the statement read out by David Sherborne, Prince Harry's lawyer. He said, of course, he'd like to thank his legal team, first of all, for successfully dismantling the Mirror Group newspaper's defence. He also spoke of the systematic practice and unlawful and appalling behaviour taking place at Mirror Group newspapers during this time. He also did name Piers Morgan, the former editor of the Daily Mirror, and accused him of clearly knowing about the illegal activities taking place at Mirror Group newspapers. Now, I must stress that Piers Morgan has in the past denied all allegations of wrongdoing when it comes to alleged unlawful information gathering, but Prince Harry very much saying that in front of the press here this morning in central London. He also said that patience is a virtue. Prince Harry's been waiting a long time for this kind of victory. He also says that there needs to be he called on the authorities, including the police and the stock market, as you said, Pip, to do their duty to the British public and investigate those who have broken the law. Clearly, Prince Harry wants this to be more than just civil action. and when it comes to financial compensation for him, it's not about the money for Prince Harry. He really wants to hold what he believes powerful people to account, change the way the media opposite, and seek justice for what he believes are thousands of victims of unlawful information practices at the hands of alleged bad practices at several newspaper groups of what he believes. But in this case, this is just Mirror Group newspapers, and of course the judge, as we've heard this morning, agrees with him on 15 of the 33 articles tested in this case. But an incredibly strong statement from Prince Harry this morning.
Strong indeed. Our royal correspondent Cameron Walker there for us at the Royal Courts of Justice, who will be with us throughout the programme. Thank you very much indeed, Cameron. And Rafe Hadel-Manku, thank you so much for your analysis on what is a historical case and hugely significant as well. That statement from the Duke of Sussex ending with the words, "The mission continues," fighting words there from Prince Harry. We'll have more on that after this on Britain's Newsroom, GB News.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are
you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. morning. It's coming up to 11:30. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Ellie Costello and Pip Thompson. And we are bringing you that breaking news that Prince Harry has in part won his case against the Mirror Group newspaper, where a judge has ruled that there was extensive phone hacking, a judgment running to 386 pages. So let's get reaction from the former royal correspondent at The Sun, Charles Ray. Let's just start, first of all, Charles, by saying that you haven't worked for MGN at any point. But you have worked at The Sun. You're an experienced journalist. How significant is this ruling today?
Well, Pip, I have to say I'm sick to my stomach this morning, to be perfectly honest, to find out that the industry and the profession that I've loved for all these years has been reduced to this. I mean, this is the latest example following the closure of the News of the World. It is very significant. It's a victory for Prince Harry, and quite rightly so. I mean, the judge said he was a victim of modest hacking. I mean, modest hacking is either whether your phone's hacked once or whether your phone's hacked 50 times. It's immaterial. His phone was hacked. And I'm afraid that the journalists involved in all these phone hacking cases are a disgrace to the industry itself. But I have to say the vast majority of journalists who work on national newspapers do not get involved in this. And I would also like to say as well that I myself am a victim of phone hacking. My phone was hacked 595 times by the late News of the World.
Wow. I mean, Charles, this is no mean feat, is it, for Prince Harry or the other claimants in this case, taking on the British tabloid press. But we do know that Prince Harry, this is just one of the 5 civil cases that he's pursuing at the moment. And we did get that sense, didn't we, in that statement just read by David Sherborne, his lawyer, that the mission continues, fighting talk from the Duke of Sussex.
It is. And this victory today, and there's no way of... he's only won 15 of his 33 cases, but it's a huge victory. And this victory has given full justification now to continue with the cases against the Sun and the ex-News of the World and the Mail Group on the hacking and interception of his voicemails. So it will go on, and it was interesting. I mean, that was a powerful, powerful statement that Prince Harry's lawyer read out, and he's asking for legal action against people at the Mirror. And the judge made a point that the ex-CEO, Sly Bailey, knew what was going on and turned a blind eye. Now, if she knew, then other senior executives would also have known.
OK, we haven't had any statement from Sly Bailey yet. I would expect we would hear from Sly Bailey at some point today. In fact, we haven't had any statements, I do not think, from anybody who was named by Prince Harry. What do you think this means, Charles, for the future of the Mirror News Group?
Well, I mean, the Mirror themselves have put out a statement saying this was historical. I can only hope and keep my fingers crossed that they haven't been doing anything like this, since then, in the same as what's happened at the Sun and the. Well, obviously, it's not happening at the News of the World anymore. That these sort of practices are no longer happening at any newspaper in this country.
We do get a sense, don't we, from Prince Harry that this is his life's work. He describes it as a mission. In that statement, he said the mission continues. And he also called upon the Met Police and the stock market to do their duty, potentially wanting the Mirror Group newspaper to face criminal charges over this.
Well, yes, he's made that call, and let's not forget there were criminal charges as a result of what happened at the News of the World, and it'll be interesting to see now, especially the Metropolitan Police, if they take action against anybody at the Mirror for what went on, because let's not forget that what has happened, although this was a civil case today, that what has happened were criminal acts, and so it's only right that they should be investigated properly.
OK, Charles Ray, thank you very much for talking to us today and giving us your reaction to that breaking news. We are going to be exploring it further after your latest news headlines with Lisa Hartle.
It's just after 11:30. I'm Lisa Hartle in the GB Newsroom. Prince Harry has been awarded more than £140,000 in damages following a phone hacking lawsuit against Mirror Group newspapers. The High Court ruled there was extensive phone hacking by the tabloid newspaper between 2006 and 2011. The judge also said the Duke of Sussex's phone was probably hacked to a modest extent. In response, the publisher say they apologise unreservedly where historical wrongdoing took place. Prince Harry's lawyer David Sherborne read out a statement earlier.
This case is not just about hacking. It is about a systemic practice of unlawful and appalling behaviour, followed by cover-ups and destruction of evidence, the shocking scale of which can only be revealed through these proceedings. The court has found that Mirror Group's principal board directors, their legal department, senior executives and editors such as Piers Morgan clearly knew about or were involved in these illegal activities.
James Cleverly says the government must and will do more after a migrant died and another was left in a critical condition following the sinking of a boat in the Channel. The Home Secretary described the incident as a horrific reminder of the people smugglers' brutality. The French Coast Guard was alerted just after 1 a.m. to reports of a boat carrying migrants sinking about 5 miles off the coast of Dunkirk. More than 60 people were rescued after one side of the boat deflated. The Coast Guard says air and sea searches are still underway. UK police are working with French authorities to bring back a British schoolboy who went missing 6 years ago. Alex Batty, who is now 17, went missing in 2017 after going on a family holiday to Spain. Detectives believe he was abducted by his mother to live an alternative lifestyle abroad. The boy says he wants to see his grandmother and have a normal future. NatWest Group says there is no evidence of discrimination due to political views on Qute's decision to close customer accounts. The banking group says lawyers analysed 84 account closures from the 2 years before the review was commissioned. But NatWest admits lessons need to be learned. It's after Nigel Farage said that his Qute's bank account was shut down because the bank disagreed with his political beliefs. You can get more on all of those stories by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
For exclusive, limited edition and rare gold coins that are always newsworthy, Rosalind Gold proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2782 and €1.1654. The price of gold is £1,598 and 82 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 7,614 points.
Rosalind Gold proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's on your teeth. It's on your teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 11:40. Welcome back. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Ellie Costello, and Pip Thompson.
And there's only one story in town today. It is the news that Prince Harry has won his phone hacking case against MGM newspapers, which has the Daily Mirror amongst its titles. Joining us now to get their reaction is political commentator Matthew Stadlen and broadcaster Mike Parry. Good morning to you both. Mike.
Yeah.
Damning statement from Prince Harry's lawyer.
It's a massive story. We were in the studio less than an hour ago when the decision came through. Then you've got to assemble it in your head and digest it. My immediate thought was, this is an incredible victory for Harry, because so far, all he's had in criticism for the Netflix and for the book Spare and all that is that you've made a lot of it up. This is not made up. This has been a High Court decision now, and for the first time in many years, Harry has credibility in the sense of the High Court judges standing behind the claims that he's made. That is a massive victory for Harry. The repercussions, and I'm a Fleet Street man of 25 years standing, could be enormous here, because without probably getting into naming names, there are some people now involved in the newspaper industry which have moved on to other things. And I think some of them actually have been named in the judgment who are now going to have to explain their actions over the last 2 decades when they have systematically been talking about nothing to do with me, Gov, you know. There's going to be massive repercussions here.
I'll name a name, and I'm reading this from the BBC News website from a Home and Legal correspondent, and I'll preface it by saying that Piers Morgan has always denied involvement in phone hacking and I think knowledge of phone hacking. Here it says Piers Morgan knew about phone hacking and was involved when he was editor of the Daily Mirror. The High Court has ruled. The High Court has ruled. So we now await statements from Piers Morgan and others. That statement from David Sherborne, the barrister outside court today, that you played live here ran live on GB News. I'm not sure I've ever heard a statement like that. Those were the words of Prince Harry read out by a British barrister, and they were stinging, to say the least.
Yes, and I'm sure that, you know, Piers Morgan will be making a statement and he will have certain things to say in response to what Prince Harry has said outside court. Well,
but also,
for him.
There could now be a domino effect in this, because what often happens in this situation, we spoke earlier, didn't we, that I think Harry's got 5 cases against 5 different media companies or 5 different media situations. We also mentioned that he had to pay out some money up front earlier this week. But this is a a massive victory for him. And in my experience of these sort of things, I've been involved in legal problems in Fleet Street, once you get a decision like this, the domino effect is that the others who have been trying to defend themselves might now just be going off to see their lawyers to say, where do we go from here? Because nobody wants to see a barrister standing outside the High Court and criticising your company and pointing out their defaults in such a public fashion. You'd rather it all went away, and the way to do that is to settle.
Something that came out in the judgment, Matthew, in the 386 pages worth of it, was that this unlawful activity was going on during the Leveson inquiry into media standards.
I mean, jaws will drop. We're going through the COVID inquiry at the moment at great expense with a lot of fanfare, a lot of publicity. The Leveson inquiry, people were glued to that daily. Huge names giving evidence over a protracted period of time. And the idea that phones were being hacked at the same time as an inquiry looking into phone hacking as one of the things that it was investigating, jaws will be dropping across the country, I think.
OK, let's go live to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, who's outside the High Court for us now. Cameron, Duke of Sussex says he slayed a dragon.
Yeah, he certainly has done that here today. Prince Harry will see this as a significant victory when it comes to his fight against the British tabloids. Of course, this is just one of 5 separate cases he has going through the High Court in London. But today is all about his fight against Mirror Group newspapers. The judges ruled that out of 15 out of the 33 articles tested in this case, Prince Harry is most likely a victim of phone hacking or another means of unlawful information gathering, such as so-called blagging or deception to get private information, or the use of private investigators. But I think, but putting aside the judgment from the court itself, it was actually the statement from Prince Harry read out by his lawyer outside the court, David Sherborne, which was most striking. You could really tell the emotion and the determination of Prince Harry, who clearly feels vindicated that he has got some kind of victory over the tabloid press, who he has really been at war with for a number of decades now. He truly feels he is a victim, and that it's his duty, really, to stand up to who he sees is in positions of power and causing these bad practices on behalf of other victims who perhaps don't have the power or the finance that Prince Harry does to take these editors, executives and media moguls on. Just to read a little bit of a statement from David Sherborne, Prince Harry's lawyer. He said, "The court found that Mirror Group's principal board directors, their legal departments, senior executives and editors such as Piers Morgan clearly knew about or were involved in these illegal activities." There are a lot of questions to answer here. I must stress that Piers Morgan has always denied he has had any knowledge of phone hacking or other unlawful information gathering when he was editor of the Daily Mirror. He hasn't released any other statement as of yet. Mirror Group Newspapers has released a statement, though, which I'm just going to get up for you now. Sorry, lots of things I've got going on. The Mirror Group Newspapers has released a statement, which I'll bring to you very shortly, saying that I do apologise, I can't find the statement, but right now I'll hand back to you guys.
Cameron, I think it was the Mirror Group, I'm just seeing part of their statement where they apologise unreservedly for what they term historical wrongdoing. And they say they welcome today's judgment that gives the business the necessary clarity to move forward from events that took place many years ago. Matthew, let's just bring you back in. Do you think this will change the public's opinion of Prince Harry? Because it doesn't take away from the fact that he's done this, but yet he's still talked about and criticised members of his family in public. He did that memoir, which we don't know that every part of it is fact because the royal family hasn't responded. Will our opinion change?
Prince Harry sort of became a focus of the culture wars that have been raging in recent years, and I suspect most people watching this show today will have made their own mind up about Prince Harry. Rightly or wrongly, I've always felt I've sort of felt a certain warmth towards Prince Harry, whether it's because he's gingerhead like me or not, I don't quite know. But the point I'm making is that people have a sort of instinctive like or dislike for him, I think. He is sort of Marmite, I suspect. So I'm not sure how many minds this will actually change. But I hope people, even if they are angry with Prince Harry for various things, even if they thought it was distasteful that he wrote a book spilling the beans on sort of very intimate parts of family life, and I didn't think that was well advised, I have to say, but I hope they have some degree of respect for him today, for having the bravery, and it is brave, even if you're wealthy, even if you were a member of the monarchy, even if you have some degree of power and influence, to take on the tabloid press. I cannot stress enough how difficult and how challenging that is to do.
And you've got to have the money to do it, which he's got.
Very, I mean, that raises wider and important questions, actually, that point about how our judicial system works, that it can't be right, that those who have the money are better able to seek this sort of justice.
I think there is an element of navel-gazing in this amongst us journalists, you know what I mean? We're fascinated by the way our industry works and all that. But there has been all my life a general dislike amongst the public for tabloid newspapers, you know what I mean? Everybody likes reading what's in tabloid newspapers, but everybody thinks people who work for tabloid newspapers are scumbags, and this will reinforce their opinion. In defence of my industry, the tabloid newspaper industry, and by the way, I don't defend anything that's been exposed today. Shocking behaviour, should be punished in my view. But for many years before this came around, there was an arrangement between tabloid newspapers and the royal family, including Princess Diana, of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. When I worked at one newspaper in Fleet Street, I'm not joking, you'd get calls 2 or 3 times a day from people representing Princess Diana to let us know where she was, what she was going to wear tonight.
She knew how to court the press, didn't she?
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. And what's happened as technology's developed, that relationship, which worked quite well on both sides, suddenly overtook itself, and then things started going wrong, there was too much access, and all of a sudden the balance of helping each other completely disappeared, and it became very one-sided.
OK, Mike, well, let's just remind ourselves of what Prince Harry's lawyer David Sherborne said a little bit earlier on outside the High Court.
This case is not just about hacking. It is about a systemic practice of unlawful and appalling behaviour, followed by cover-ups and destruction of evidence, the shocking scale of which can only be revealed through these proceedings. The court has found that Mirror Group's principal board directors, their legal department, senior executives and editors such as Piers Morgan clearly knew about or were involved in these illegal activities.
David Sherborne there, Prince Harry's lawyer, speaking outside the High Court. Matthew Stadlin, I wanted to ask you, what do you think Prince Harry's eventual aim for this is? He describes it as slaying a dragon, but he does say the mission continues. He talks there about criminal charges and asking the Metropolitan Police and the stock market to get involved. Do you think that's what he wants from this, for people to serve prison time?
Obviously difficult to get inside his head, but now one senses he's tasted blood, that he may want more. And that statement, as I've already said, I mean, it pulled very few punches, didn't it, Mike? And there will be a lot of people around this country, some in positions of power still, others maybe who've left the industry who will be sweating.
Or in other parts of the industry. And let's not forget, let's go right back to the fact that Harry has always believed an element of the tabloid press were responsible for his mother's death. He regards those photographers, the paparazzi, chasing his mother that night as being directly responsible for his mother's death, and we can never forget the image of him walking behind his mother's coffin when the hatred of the people who he thought had caused his mother's death was burnt into him.
I think it's also an important point that his mother wasn't wearing a seatbelt either.
Oh, listen, I've never accepted it was the paparazzi. You know, the driver was drunk. That came out in 2 inquiries, and the way the security was arranged was abysmal, and I don't blame the paparazzi, but Harry does. And you're quite right. If Princess Diana had a seatbelt on, she wouldn't have crushed her chest on the seat in front of her. Absolutely right.
But you can understand how, as a little boy,
exactly,
and how damaged you are.
Oh, he's been brought up on it
by
people who want to think ill of the tabloid press. He's been brought up on the fact that they were responsible.
To make the wider point as well, that there will be a lot of people whose phones have been hacked over the years who will see this as a victory for them as well, and the people that they loved and the relationships that were affected or destroyed. And as Mike says, although people do devour and have devoured tabloids, there's a deep suspicion of tabloid behaviour, and the public, I think, might see this as a victory for them as well.
They might do indeed, and Prince Harry has been successful in this case, and it could now open the door to dozens of others who are considering claims against other tabloid groups. Well, Matthew, Mike, really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much for your analysis. And that's it from Britain's Newsroom. Up next, Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily. Have a lovely weekend.
Thanks very much for your company. Bye-bye.
Well, coming up on the show, of course, plenty more on that seismic Harry judgment that we've been hearing so much about, but also the home of Sir Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, the family home of Sir Keir Starmer, has been targeted by eco-activists. Is this legitimate campaigning?
And a Hamas plot, a terror plot, has been foiled in Europe. We're hearing more about arrests being made on the European continent. What are the implications here in Britain?
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. A dry but cloudy day for most today, quite breezy as well. Now, most places will be dry, but we are going to see further outbreaks of rain across northwest Scotland, and that will continue for much of the weekend. High pressure is dominating down to the south, but weather fronts at times will be toppling in. So, as I said, bringing some rain over the Highlands and the Western Isles. It's getting quite windy here also. A bit breezy elsewhere, but most areas just dry and cloudy. There are some breaks in the cloud across eastern England, so you may get a glimmer of brightness, a hint of sunshine, but say most just having a grey day. Fairly mild, though, despite the lack of sunshine. 8-9 degrees in the east, 10 or 11, maybe 12 further west. The rain may ease for a time over northwest Scotland this evening, but we'll see further outbreaks of rain coming in here through the nighttime period and staying very windy also. Elsewhere, a bit of breeze, a lot of cloud. Some mist and fog patches are possible as temperatures in the east may dip down to 5 or 6 Celsius, but certainly in the west, a very mild night. Some places staying in double digits. And we see little change during Saturday. If anything, the rain's going to pep up, though, in the northwest, and that could cause some problems as it really builds up through the course of the weekend. But away from the northwest, most places will be dry tomorrow. Some drizzle at times around western coasts and hills. But again, most areas just rather drab, breezy, but very mild for the middle part of December.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affect us all around the country. Only